What's up, guys? Welcome to episode number 4 of Master Your Fire. My name's Kevin Crenshaw, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to my good friend, Brendon Burns. We met just a few weeks ago, and just in passing at a conference, and this dude's freaking killing it. He has an amazing story and an amazing background that I want you guys to hear. For the new listeners listening to the podcast, it's all about mastering an area of your life. And with Brendon, he shared me a little bit about his story, but we're going to kind of dive deeper in it today of overcoming depression and really just taking control of your own life. And you are a life coach and help other people to do that now. So that interests me because that's very similar to my story. And it's always cool to see other people like completely make that shift of like you're just depressed and now you're helping other people get out of it. Like, what the heck? So I'm just going to leave the floor to you and yeah, tell us about yourself.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was so great meeting you just a couple of weeks ago. I love your energy, your aliveness, and it's really an honor to be on your show today. So thank you, first of all.
Dude, I appreciate it.
For those who don't know, I'm Brendon Burns of BrendonHBurns.com or the Adventure Days podcast. And like Kevin was saying, I have gone through quite a transformation. If you go all the way back to my past, you'll find abuse from my parents, from step-parents, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, pretty much a textbook case of just an abusive childhood. And interestingly, I was in denial about it for many, many years. So when people would ask me about my past or would ask me about my childhood, I always deflected and I always told people it was fine. That was kind of like the mask that I wore. Oh, it was hard, but it wasn't a big deal. And I always just sort of lived in denial about that. One of the ways I coped with this was really diving into schoolwork. So, in a lot of ways, I'm fortunate that my depression actually turned into a positive addiction of achievement. And it wound up going a little bit too far in that direction. But as I was growing up, I was getting a lot of negativity in my home, but a lot of positive reinforcement in school from teachers and from excelling there. So my first step to sort of escape that, my background was I got into Cornell University and I went to college there. And I was having a lot of success. And, something I didn't realize until later in my life was that I was just continuing to do these things to get the approval of other people. Because when you're not getting love or nurturing from your family, I sought it elsewhere, and I sought it from schooling and achievement-oriented lifestyle. So, I got to Cornell University. I was doing well there. I was getting good grades. I was getting positive love and reinforcement in an unhealthy way because I wasn't really living my true self. But it was, okay, this is good. People are telling me I'm good. I'm going to keep doing this. And I graduated Cornell, and I was accepted to the first ever class of a 3-year accelerated JD MBA program, which means Cornell Law School, Cornell MBA Business School, combined 5 years of school into 3. So basically, I was an achievement addict, a total junkie, and I was like willing to sacrifice whatever I could, including my own needs and my own wants and desires. And, just as a quick aside, during undergrad, I spent a semester living in Barcelona, Spain, and that was like really me manifesting my true self of kind of where I am today, and we can get to that. But I was living in Spain. I had a work-life balance. I wasn't working 20 hours a day to get the approval of other people like I was at Cornell. And I remember I came back from Barcelona for after the semester abroad, and my family and my grandmother specifically asked me, "Oh, how was your semester abroad?" I said, "Oh my God, the Spaniards, they take siestas, they have families, they have work-life balance. I love it. I want to move to Europe. I want to become a language major. This is what I want to do. I want to teach. I want to travel." And my grandma immediately shot it down. She says, "What are you going to do with that? How are you going to monetize that? Stay in finance, go to Wall Street, boom, boom, boom." And again, like you had this like dichotomy of like who I really am and what I wanted, and then this like achievement-oriented model about, success rather than fulfillment. So, that was just interesting. And then, so I continued with my JD MBA program, got my law degree, got my MBA, had 3 Ivy League degrees by the time I was 25, went to Wall Street, got a job at a prestigious investment bank, making $250,000 a year, making more than both my parents combined at 25, and just stacking on achievement after achievement. Like, so the job, the law degree, had a girlfriend, personal trainer, fancy apartment, and deep down, like, there was so much covering up my reality. There were so many layers blocking me from like my true self and my feelings, that if you went all the way down, you would find a deeply depressed, scared, unhappy person. But I stacked, like hedonistic item after hedonistic item of travel and expensive meals and resume box checking, that I was like living in this real daze. But I think, like all bubbles do, mine popped when I was, 1 year later, when a long-term relationship came to a quick end, and I realized I was being abusive for the first time in my life, introduced to that term. My brother got very sick. He's okay now, but that happened. And the job that I was working at, which is really how I identified who I was as a person, they were about to fire me as well. So all these things blew up in my face. And I'm so grateful, because those things really triggered my journey and my awareness and, everything that's happened up until now.
That's insane. And you hit on, I want to say, like, you hit on you learned it. One of the biggest things is that achievement doesn't bring fulfillment, because you kept trying to chase it and chase it and chase it and chase it, and you were empty inside. And because it's that quick sugar high, right? Of like, boom, you did this thing. Okay, now what? Fuck, I got to do another thing, right? And I've been down that rabbit hole too. But that's insane that you discovered that, number one. But then also, just like you said, you were grateful for all that stuff blowing up in your face, because it helped you to look in the mirror. So and say, okay, what am I? You looked at yourself, and that takes courage, number one. So I applaud you for that. And it takes courage to look yourself in the mirror with no filter and go, what's actually happening? And you're looking at the good and looking at the bad and all that stuff. And that's where real change happens, I believe.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, all the, like, the best things that have ever happened to me in my life have been the worst things, on paper or on the surface, like the breakup, losing my job, my brother getting sick. Those things, like, put me in such a deep, dark place where I needed to find answers. And I found self-improvement, personal growth, and, these books. And, like, I found the first book that I ever read is called The Emotionally Abusive Relationship. And not the first book I ever read, but the first, self-help book. And what that taught me was that I came from a very abusive background. My parents were abusive towards me. I had been repeating those patterns in a relationship. And I fell in love with the book. I fell in love with this whole concept of, okay, I can fix these things. And the author of the book was living in a remote city in Texas at the time. And she was a pretty well-known author. She was a top-selling Amazon author with like 12 books, TV appearances. But I could barely even find her website. But I really felt the connection. I felt like I needed to get in touch with this woman. Like, I felt like I had read a bunch of books on abuse, and they were not that they shouldn't be, but most of them were geared towards women, saying how to get out of the relationship. Very few, if any, were geared towards, oh, the man is being abusive. He's, how can I stop being abusive? Most of them are helping women get out of the relationship, which that's awesome. But what about the men who are being abusive and want to stop? And her book was about that. So I felt this like deep connection to her and her work. And on her website, which was like, it looked like a MySpace page, all the way at the bottom, there, like, it was an asterisk, and it says, like, if you want to talk to Beverly, mail a check for $60 to this P.O. box in San Marcos, Texas, and in the memo line of the check, put your email address, and she'll get back to you, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm sitting there. This was at my old job in investment banking when everyone had cleared out for the day, and I was doing my journaling. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to send this check. Like, 10% chance she's not going to get back to me. 1%, like, she'll change my life. And fast forward 3 years later, I talk to her once a week on the phone. She has guided me through every issue imaginable and is my personal coach.
That's insane right there.
Yeah.
That's incredible. This goes to show you, like, trust your intuition, right? Because you were just
Mhm.
like, I'm going to chance it. And, you know,
Yeah.
then
I
here
mean,
you are.
yeah, you never know. And I just felt like a connection to her work. And she ultimately emailed me back, obviously, and we started talking. And it was really, really painful at first and really new and different. And it triggered, I'm a huge advocate for making big changes in people's lives as necessary. She taught me so much about my life. And she just like, the analogy would be just like an onion where like layers and layers are coming
Yeah.
off. Okay, this like, and then she saw that I had some trauma from my past and I had PTSD. So then like I went to a PTSD specialist, and then she saw that I had compulsive behaviors. So I saw an addiction specialist, and it's just like all these layers. And it was just like, that was the core of where it all started for me. And I'm
Uh,
really blessed to have found her.
that's awesome, man. So I know we talked a little bit about it before we jumped on the actual podcast, but what would you say that you have mastered in life? Because we all are masters of something. I believe that very strongly. But what do you feel that you've overcome, that you've mastered?
Yeah, I think I've mastered the ability to take ownership and empowerment and control over my own life and lifestyle and life design. So the big thing that I've been able to do in my life is, rather than make excuses and say how hard it is, like I ripped off the Band-Aid. I tell people that I was wearing golden handcuffs when I worked on Wall Street because as miserable as it was, like I had a guy I sat next to. I used to work at a big investment bank, and there was a guy, really nice guy, who sat next to me. He was like 24 years old, recent graduate from the University of Pennsylvania, and he was probably making, he was making a ton of money, but he was so depressed and miserable. And one night at around 10:30 in the evening, he and I both got an email from our boss saying, where are you guys? It's only 10:30. Brendon, you better not have gone home yet. We need all hands on deck tonight. This is like Wall Street, as cliche as it can get. And
Yeah.
so I come down. I was upstairs on the 64th floor of the building that we worked in, and that was 3 floors above where we sat, because I was up there with flashcards trying to interview prep to get the hell out of there, because I hated this company and I needed to get out. I see the email and I'm like, crap, all right, I'm going back downstairs. So I go down to 61 where we sat, and this guy, my peer, looks like he's having a heart attack. And he passed out on the floor. Everyone was surrounding him. It was only 10:30 p.m., so naturally the whole team was still there. And he luckily still had his heartbeat, but he was like seizing. It was like a seizure, stress-induced. A stretcher came onto the 61st floor and carted the guy off. HR came in. We had this HR woman come in from home to call his parents to drive up from Delaware. And I'll never forget, our boss turned to me and said, here's all the work to do. I'm going to go to the hospital. You better not go anywhere.
Wow.
And I sat there from like 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. And I guarantee you, I did not do any work. I got right onto LinkedIn and I was like finding jobs. And I was like, apply.
Wow.
And fortunately this guy made it and he had a full recovery and it was fine. But sadly, in my following job, I worked at a hedge fund on Wall Street for 3 years. I was at the bank for 1 year and then at the hedge fund for 3, so 4 years total on Wall Street. And in that second job, actually a guy did pass away. And I don't want to by any means blame it on the job, because this guy had a history of problems with drugs. But this is like the environment that I was working in, and at the time, I was just making a lot of excuses, and big words that showed up in my vocabulary are I can't or I should. And it's like when people talk about turning those shoulds into musts, that's a big thing that I spent years working through. And I've been I was obviously able to leave Wall Street to start my own business. You know, a lot of things that I'm very passionate about that I teach other people how to do. That if you ask me what I've mastered, it's the ability to stand up for myself, learning how to say no, learning how to make big decisions in your life, and really like learning how to put yourself first. Because I think a lot of people live their lives for what other people think of them, for what their parents think they should do, for what society thinks they should do. And, you know, a lot of people come to me and they just start with their problems. I'm like, all right, what's going on in your life? And it's like, oh, my boyfriend, this or that, he's not treating you right. My job sucks. My mom is manipulating me, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, 99% of this has to do with saying no, standing up for yourself, making a change, stepping up. And for the most part, like, you start peeling back those layers and you realize people are afraid to put themselves first. They're afraid of what other people think of them. Very common threads that I'm sure you see as well.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people who are in that situation, and I used to be in that situation where I wouldn't stand up for myself.
Yeah.
I was being abused by my friends, like making fun of me, but I still hung around them because they were, I thought they were my friends.
Yeah.
They were picking on me and they paid attention to me. Like, you know what I mean? So it took me years to get out of that and finally stand up for myself. But what do you tell your clients or people that you work with? How can people stand up for themselves? Because, and I want to say this, and I want to preface it, I didn't want to stand up for myself because I didn't want to lose them as friends. Mm-hmm. Because there was times where they were my really good friends, but then they also picked on me and made fun of me, right? I didn't want to lose that because they were my only friends, number one. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of uncertainty in the future. And number two, I was a people pleaser. And I'm a love bug. I didn't want to hurt them by like standing up for myself. Like, I didn't want to say, look, we can't do this anymore, or like, I can't freaking be around you guys. This sucks. Like, I didn't want to hurt them or anybody else. And so I just accepted it, right? And I just like let it happen. Mm-hmm. And I took the back seat. And so one day I got super pissed off and I didn't. But how do you coach your clients through it? And what would you say to somebody who's maybe in that situation, not just with friends, but maybe it's a relationship, or maybe it's with a business, or the boss, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome question. And I've been there too, with my friends, with my family, with people at work. And the first thing, it's kind of like a two-pronged approach that I teach. And the first prong is people who aren't treating you right. Some of them actually, small tweaks can actually get them to treat you well. And you can have a healthy relationship with some of those people. And what I tell people is, and I learned this from my own mistake, which was anyone who like didn't treat me amazingly, I just immediately cut them out of my life. Sometimes no explanation. I just said, no, they looked at me the wrong way. They don't belong in my, close group of friends. And I went way too far to the other side of the pendulum. And then I started realizing that I was alone, because nobody's perfect, and that if I cut out anyone for the smallest issues, that it's not going to work out long term. So, for example, I had a friend. So instead, what I say to do first is you talk to that person. And it's a way to really stand up for yourself and empower yourself. And there's a guy who I know from I went on a group trip with him to the Middle East. That was really fun. And he's a really cool guy, very smart, very engaged with community activities. We actually started a peer-led group in New York together. And a really neat guy who just has personal issues from his past. And what he was doing was, due to his insecurities, he was very quick to put other people down. And he found something about me that he didn't like, and it became like a regular thing of, he was going to make fun of me for this. And so what happened was we were at some event. Basically, it was my age, because I'm 30 now, so I'm no longer a spring chicken. And and we were at some museum, and for our peer-led group. And he was like maybe 25, and I was probably 29, and other people were probably early 20s. And I made a joke about using my student ID, and he just like whipped back at me, and he like called me something like grandpa, or just like a mean, like calling me old. And it was just, I had enough of it. Like, it was like the 10th time he said something, and it was really pissing me off. And what I said to him was like, well, so what I did was I took a deep breath. I calmed myself down first, because you want to always like go from the heart and not from an emotional
Right.
reaction. But I knew he had gone downstairs. I followed him downstairs. I asked if I could talk to him. It was really important that I did a couple things. First, I got my feet like really grounded, and I got really centered inside myself. And number two is I made like real deep eye contact and like had a real connection with this guy before. Like, I didn't want to snap back at him. I wanted him to like be looking me right in the eyes and like hear me from my heart. And I said, "Hey man, you know, I noticed you called me old again. I know you probably didn't mean anything by it, but it really," and like, but I couldn't even finish my sentence. He had already, like, his whole state changed. He didn't even realize he was doing it. He was apologizing to me profusely, said he was so embarrassed, said it was never going to happen again. It was just like, it was like I couldn't even finish my sentence, because I think on a deep level, he knew he was doing something wrong. And second, he got confronted about it in a mature way. He's never done it since. We're very good friends. He's been treating me only fantastically, and I think he treats other people better too, because he's now aware of and we've had some great heart-to-hearts, and he's in therapy now. I think everyone, you know, would benefit from therapy or a coach, and he's just made some awesome progress. So that's like prong one is, you know, address it, face it head on, because I think most people are fair and either don't realize what's happening or will hear you out. Now the second prong is basically do the same thing, but some people aren't going to listen to you and they're not going to change. And that's usually a reflection of they're so lost, or they're in so much pain, or they're so deep. Their patterns are like, you know, they're older, or they had an even more traumatic past, or heavier insecurities where you talk to them about it. They say they will change or they don't, but either way, they don't change. And that's when I tell people, like, okay, you need to find other people. And I think usually it's a combination. Like for me, I've had certain people, I've had many people who I've spoken to about, and I've said, look, you know, this is what needs to change for us to be friends. And they've done it. And like, I had a guy who used to show up late all the time for meetings with me. And again, like probably you in the past, like I used to just let people show up whenever, walk all over me. And I talked to him about it. I looked him in the eye, same thing. He and I are both early to every meeting we have now. So we're respectful.
So it just comes down to communication with it. But what if the communication leads to, like, maybe, for example, somebody who's in a relationship and they know they shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
But then they're like, how do they break that and just say, look, like, no, when you're such a people pleaser?
Yeah, no, that's prong two, which is what do you do when the person can't, you know, make the adjustment? They don't meet your needs, because it's really important to have high standards for relationships and friends. And if you're with someone who can't meet your needs, and I learned the hard way that both my parents can't meet my needs, and I've had to go very low contact with them, and that's very unfortunate, but it's very healthy that I've done that. And for the people pleaser, I think the most important things are persistence in yourself and patience and practice. I guess I should pad that, the 3 Ps. Because, no, realistically, what it comes down to is boundary setting, learning how to say no, learning how to stay firm, dealing with guilt around it. I think, you know, when you think about our core emotions of anger, fear, sadness, shame, and guilt, I think shame and guilt, for me at least, show up a ton. So it's like the classic people pleaser takes on feelings of other people and thinks it's his or her responsibility for other people to be happy. And yeah.
Mind blown.
No, it's psychology. So it's so what you have to do is first you have to be aware, okay, I'm taking on this like, it's very common for people in relationships, like you said, to stay with someone else and they say, no, but I love them, or, but he's good to me in so many other ways. But, you know, So what I've done I have a lot of exercises that are very effective that I've done and that I teach other people how to do. One is, you know, I have this saying no exercise where I will set up 2 chairs in my apartment, and I'll sit in one and I'll envision the other person in the other chair. And then I'll actually go into that other chair and role play as them. And use the counters and the objections and the buts. I'll stand up, I'll walk around my apartment envisioning myself saying no. It's all, I think it's a lot of practice, because for me personally, I've gotten so much better at it over time. And, one of the other things that I used to do, I didn't realize this until later in my life, but most people, when they're lying, maybe not always, but it's very common that people are lying in a people-pleasing way. What I did, for example, was if there was someone that I couldn't say no to, I would lie about it and say, oh, I'm tied up that weekend. Yeah. And then the problem with that is, one, you're probably going to get caught in that lie. And two, you're basically inviting that person to invite you to more stuff. So it's like,
and you're lying to yourself. It's going to kill your integrity.
Exactly. Yeah. Your word, your integrity, how you feel about yourself. So, it's like, there's some people, especially as my business has taken off. Like, I just crossed 70K on Instagram yesterday. So
nice.
Thank you.
I just crossed 26, so I'm on my way.
Nice. Congrats, man. Yeah. And that's like another aspect of my business. I'm not as passionate about it, but I do some business and social media coaching. But this stuff really fires me up, and the saying no. And like I was saying, like having all these followers now, a lot of my older friends now reach out to me and want to hang out. And, I've openly told certain of them who, some of them do hard drugs, some of them are on Wall Street. And like, I have no tolerance for any of that stuff. So I've had to go no contact. I've had to block people. I've had to just, shut them out. And that's for the very, very small percentage of people you've spoken to. They won't change. You tell them no, and they still keep harassing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So yeah, you shared the how of this, how to structure the conversations, and you gave an overview, but I'm just curious, how do you get to the initial starting of it? Like, how does one go from, I need to have this conversation, to actually doing it when they're scared out of their mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like you said, the first step is identifying it. And I think most people are stuck so far back that they don't even realize, what in their life is healthy versus what's unhealthy. So yeah. I'm always like a big fan of just getting people, like anyone who's listening to this podcast, you're in the right place. You're in great hands with Kevin, because just having this awareness of, okay, we're even talking about the idea of my relationship might be totally toxic, or I might be getting trampled over by friends or family or people just not treating me right. Like, a good example is my aunt on my dad's side, who, because of her unhealthy relationship with her mother, my grandmother, became a people pleaser. And then she came to me one time and she's like, oh, Brendon, I need your help. I have this friend of mine who won't talk to me and is treating me terribly. So like, step one, okay, that's awareness. And then I think, obviously step two is, how do you get to that point where you can talk to them about it and set healthy boundaries? And, I think, like most things in life, there's no quick fix. Like, it just depends on how much strength, or, how ready you are to do it. Because in that situation, she had a friend who was manipulating her, not treating her properly. And the ideal situation would have been to reach out and say, look, the way you're treating me is totally inappropriate. If you ever want a friendship again with me, you will call me right now and we will discuss this. But I think more realistically, it takes time, and it's like conditioned response and pattern reinforcement. And what I mean by that is, in that particular situation, my aunt has this friend who she's had for many, many years. And what happened was, the human psychological needs of like certainty, uncertainty, significance, love, connection. So that woman, my aunt's friend, was operating from significance. And when she felt powerless in her life, her pattern was to shut out my aunt and go no contact with my aunt and mistreat my aunt as a way to feel powerful in her own life.
Right.
And then when she was done having that ego trip, she'd call my aunt up, give her a fake apology, be like, okay, I'm ready to be friends again. And And so I think, if you go back to what I said earlier, like, okay, having the conversation, but the conversation's not going to do it. What's going to do it is over time, very clearly showing that it's totally unacceptable to do that because I'm not going to be there next time. And, if you ditch me like that again, I'm gone. And that's very common in relationships too. The thing is, like, you'll see men or women in relationships very often knowing that their partner is a people pleaser, and they'll go have an affair or they'll go stray or even an emotional affair. And they know that when they get back, their partner will be there. And as a result, they continue that behavior. So it's like you have to teach people what you're willing to allow and more importantly, what you're willing to not allow. And over time, it's like if a guy does that, if a guy strays and then tries to come back to the woman's gone. Or, like you just can't. A lot of it just comes down to like actions speaking louder than words in certain instances where you make it very clear. Like if it's a friend, for example, and he does something inappropriate with you, doesn't treat you right, not only do you say something, but you back it up and you say, hey, I'm not talking to you, we need a cooling off period. I'm not sure we can be friends the way you treated me again. And I'm a big believer in second chances, but I'm not a big believer in third, fourth, fifth, and sixth chances.
Yeah. So it's just essentially standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
And I love it. I freaking love it because you need to have that. And I think too, maybe I'm wrong, but some people have this aura about them. I used to have this aura where it was like, pick on me. Like I almost drew those people to me. And now, since I've done so much work on myself, I give off the energy of like, you don't want to fuck with me. And so people don't have it anymore, like I don't get that same negativity anymore. I don't have to sit down and have these conversations because I shifted my identity and how I operate and how the energy that I bring to the table.
Oh, dude, and I totally feel that from your energy. Like when we met at that conference a few weeks ago, like I knew who you were before you even told me. Like,
really?
Yeah, the way you walk around, the way your posture, like it was obvious to me that you had some fitness element to yourself.
Well, duh.
Yeah. I could just tell from your gait, from your body, from your syntax. I was like, this guy doesn't let people fuck with him. Sorry, I don't know if we can curse on this.
Yeah, no, definitely. Wow, okay.
And I really, really respect that in you. And I really feel like that's totally true. Like, one interesting thing is I used to have chronic neck pain, and my emotions and the way I felt about myself led to this hunch over. And then because my posture was like that, every inch forward, your cervical spine has to carry another 10 pounds on it. So what happened was the emotion led to the physical and led to the, and when people are standing like that, obviously you're going to attract people who want to be in control and push you around.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
So just you change your life, change your posture, and then boom, it's over. And that's the thing. Like, that's crazy that you mentioned that because I didn't even know I knew I was giving off that aura, but it's crazy that you saw it and to hear it from somebody else other than me. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally. Like, I just, the way you were walking around, I could just tell, like, not only were you like in shape, a fitness master, but I just, like, the way you walk emits this concept of, I know which direction I'm going in, and you're not going to stop me from getting there, and it's just, I think that's so important because I think people, A, don't know where they're going, and B, if a friend tells them, oh, you shouldn't do that or you can't do that, they say, okay. But I felt like I looked up to you and I was like, Kevin, like, you're not going to start a successful business. You would just be like, get the
bullshit.
you would just like throw me to the side and keep going. And that's what you have and what I have and what it takes to be successul.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it comes, for all the viewers going, okay, how do I get to that? I do want to say really quick is like, that's what I teach people to do. I teach people how to have more confidence, how to create that identity shift, how to use your body differently. Because I was a very similar story to you. That's why we're, talking. Because like I was the kid that got picked on all the time, super shy. Like, I just to myself, I was the walking around with no purpose type person. Right. And now it's who I freaking am. And so making that identity shift is so crucial to not just to block out all that negativity because they'll see it. And it's all a subconscious thing too, right? Like people don't go, oh, I'm going to go talk to that guy so I can pick on him because he's slunched over and shit. Like it's just everything is energy, and it's just this natural attraction that happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No,
that's awesome.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So I guess really quick, what would you say, and we're going to leave on this note, how did you keep your fire alive? How did you not give up and keep going when things were really tough?
It's a great question. I think that one of the things that has helped me tremendously in my life, not giving up, pushing through, getting to the next level in all areas of my life, comes down to surrounding myself with the right people. And one of my favorite quotes is by a guy named Jim Rohn, former self-improvement speaker, who said, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with."
Yes.
And I couldn't believe in that more, because if you hang out with people who have these desk jobs and they make $100K a year and they're content and they go to happy hours and they're chubby, you're going to become that in many ways. It's going to rub off on you. It's osmosis. But if you hang out with people like you and like other people who invest in themselves and they're building their own businesses, you're going to get to 7, 8 figures. You're going to be totally empowered. You're going to be doing whatever you want all day, every day. And for me, what I've done is I've cultivated this network of people who are so strong, who are so powerful, who are so determined, who don't give up. And I have this support system where if I'm having a bad day, like I woke up today, I just launched marketing for a new course, an online course that I'm selling. And, I wake up today and I got 5 people texting me, how were your conversions on your landing page yesterday? Those are 5 entrepreneurs in New York City who have 6 or 7 figure businesses who are checking in and holding me accountable to my business. And what am I going to do? I'm going to wake up and I'm going to make sure my conversions are killing it, so I'm making money, so I can be in a mastermind with these guys and they can push me to the next level. It's like when I went to school at Cornell, we would play pickup basketball. And there were always 2 courts. And there was one court which had the guys who were just kind of hanging out. They didn't want to, overdo it. They just wanted to shoot around. And then you had the second court, and it was guys on the football team, guys even from the basketball team, if it was out of season, were playing. And I'd be I'm 6 foot tall, and I'd be the shortest guy in the court. And that's how you get better at basketball. You play with guys who are playing in college, and that's just how I've been able to improve. I have a coach. I have multiple coaches, mentors, therapists. You surround yourself with these people. If you're watching this right now, get in touch with Kevin. You surround yourself with people like Kevin. That's how you grow.
Yeah, definitely. I could not agree more. It took me years to understand that, to not just hear it, but understand it and do it. And everything that we've talked about, I think, can help people. They have the tools now to stand up for themselves, to create a better friend circle, which will eventually level up your life. So thank you for being on the podcast, dude. This conversation was very helpful to me, hopefully to everybody else. I know I'm going to leave links for everybody down below in the comments or up above or wherever the hell it's going to be, so they can reach out to you if they have any other questions. But again, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story and the tips that you brought to the table. I really do appreciate you, man.
No, it's my pleasure, Kevin. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and I'll holla at you in the next episode. Peace.